harder you hit it, the worse it works. Now, why is the AKG the open back microphone? Why would people use that?
That'd be better for like a more closed room.
Okay.
So that way it has room to bounce
Often,
off.
yes. Frequently also used the football shaped one now, of course, for someone who hits really, really hard, where you're not going to get the low frequency anyway because they're choking the drum, because its picture of the high frequency stuff of the attack of the drum is much more, has much more information in it than the high frequency portion of the attack of the drum in the Shure microphone, because since it's tuned to be resonant at the low frequency, you know, it's not paying nearly as much attention to the rocky hitting that side of beef, and you know, like it's not picking up that sound nearly as much.
So it helps correct it if
Yeah.
it's being
Well,
over.
or in lots of like super loud places where you can't use a closed back microphone like that because it doesn't pick anything up, because there's nothing, the drum's not making the sounds and the microphone's not very good at picking up the high frequency portion of that. Then you drop back to your AKG and put it up there, and it'll pick up the part of the drum being hit that'll cut through the mix, because if the drummer's playing that hard, so's everybody else. And the only thing that you can do with the kick drum is make it punctuate the roar of information that is leaving the stage. Old sound guy advice, you know, like, well, don't you have one of those, those Shure Beta B52 things? They sound like thunder. I go like, yeah, but your drum sounds like shit. So, you know, it's not going to work. Because the characteristics of one have to match the characteristics of the other, or you're not going to get what you thought you were going to get. Are we good with the kick drum? Is that enough of that for now to completely change how you thought about making kick drums? Now, and I would also like to point out that neither of those microphones is in that hole. Okay, there's a hole in the head of that drum, which I am doing my level-headed best to ignore. All right, because the hole in the front of that kick drum makes that be less of a drum. Just like a hole in the front of your chest would make you be less of a person. Okay, because not only would you be like, you know, bleeding out, you would be far less resonant. All right, so that hole in that drum is making that drum be less resonant than it otherwise would be, and I can get my best result by just ignoring it. When I use that same kit of drums playing live in order to isolate more from the attitude-laden bass player, I will put the kick drum microphone ever so slightly into the hole, but with the same asymmetric representation. And the reason I'm putting it in the hole is to reduce the amount of leakage from the attitude-laden bass player, not to improve the sound of the kick drum, because the truth of the matter is it harms the sound of the kick drum, but it doesn't harm it as much as having it be irretrievably blended with the bass player. You had a question?
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. So if you were on stage, would you want the closed back or the open?
Depends how hard they play. If they play like a normal, sane person, you can get a great sounding kick drum with the closed back microphone, which is resonant and like makes it be all rounded, warm, and fuzzy. If it's some like lunatic, all it's going to do is overwhelm the low frequency capability both of the drum and of the closed back microphone, and you're better off using the open back microphone. Does that take care of that? Go.
Yeah, so I was saying, what I was stating, like, you know, most, especially like if you get like most metal groups, you know what I mean, and, you know, most drummers who, I mean, for them, you know, they thrive on the more noise. I mean, especially if it's like an open area. So the closed back would be more optional, because if you got the, I mean, not the closed back, but the open back would be more optional, because if it's the closed, I mean, you're creating, it's sort of like two forces against each other.
Yeah, exactly. You're making an out of phase component to the sound that you don't want. All right, yep, you betcha. And one other thing, before I get to you, one other thing about multiple kick drum microphones is sometimes you have to, sometimes you deal with drummers that are double kick players. There's two kick drums.
Yeah.
Never use the same microphone for both kick drums, because that completely takes away the fact that they have two kick drums. All right, make one be faster than the other, or make one be open and the other one be closed, or make one be resonant, and very dependent on the drummer and how hard they play. But I see guys like putting up a pair of microphones that are the same on double kicks, and when both kicks are the same size, no matter how differently the drummer thinks that they tuned them, you have to send them out to get food while the engineer goes in and retunes one of the kick drums, so you can get that high-low, 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 high-low thing going on. Go ahead.
I was just asking, so you were saying when you miking the kick drum with the hole in it, you put it in slightly, it's still on an angle.
Yes. Yep, so that the waveform, so that the high frequencies hit it quicker than the low frequencies, because it takes longer for the low frequencies to coalesce. And even that couple degrees makes a difference on how coherent that low frequency sound wave is.
I don't know if it's where we're moving next, but where do you mic the back of the kick of the drum?
The beater side,
Mm-hmm.
when someone has a large bore automatic to my head, and not very much often else other than that, except when I'm doing some magical kick and snare trick, where I am vaguely fond of putting an omnidirectional microphone, kind of halfway between the beater of the kick drum and the bottom of the snare, and then compressing the bejesus out of it, like 20-1, so that it's just snap. It causes the need for dental work, okay? And then you bring that back into your mix. If you find that your drums are just laying there in the chorus or something, you can just bring that in, just like any less than it would be none. Any more than that, it would be too much. You just bump that fader up like to none, and it'll lift the drums right, it'll like push them to the front of the record. Other than that, the backside of kick drums is so full of squeak